Getting to the nitty gritty. Okay, so let's start. We're starting off with Article 140. There's this big to do about Article 140. Article 140 is simply described a settlement of the disputed areas. Now, it is not officially part of the Constitution until it is enacted in the Constitution officially, because the official articles in the Iraqi Constitution go up to 139. Okay, a lot of people don't know that, but that's the official. Okay, so what has to happen is they've got to put Article 140 into the Constitution, and when they do, they've got to not only have land disputes, but there are 400 families that are in Iraq, that in northern Iraq, that people fled to Syria, or excuse me, northern Iraq, and I believe Iran, northern Syria, stuff like that. They ran away to flee from the wars that were back in the Ba'ath era, right? So consider Article 140 just like the Kuwait settlement. They don't have to pay the citizens all in one pay. I know on YouTube, I kind of have the thought process, well, they've got to have so many hundreds of millions or how many hundreds of trillions of dollars to pay these people up front. That's not what they're going to do. What they're actually going to do is it's going to be allocated in the budget. Remember I told you I got to see the budget and how it's allocated. So when they took that Article 140 and I placed that article and I told you guys, oops, this is wrong. They had 50 billion dinars 4 years ago. They needed 420 billion dinars. That equals out to be about 420 million dollars. Divide that by the 400 families. Each family will get about $10 million USD to start their family over. Okay? Now, with that information, you got to say to yourself, why is that important? It's important that they don't try to pay the citizens up front. Why?
Tell me, why?
Why? Because they'll use their reserves. We don't want them to burn through their reserves. Their reserves are the one thing, or one of a few factors that make their currency hold a value. Mm-hmm. We want them to pay out because that's part of the reinstatement process, right? But we want them to make payments, okay? Mm-hmm. That's what we're looking for. So when I tell you guys on YouTube, hey, look, I need to see allocation in the budget. I need to see allocation in the budget. I need to see it only because I need to see what they're going to do, how they're going to pay it. I'm looking for them to pay somewhere between 20 to 65 billion. I don't want to see trillion, billion dinars a year to that. Okay? Mm-hmm. How they're going to do that is they're going to give the Kurds about 12.5 to 12.7%. Kurds are going to pay in their oil, and part of that revenue coming back is going to go to fuel Article 140. Okay? So they have money set aside for it, but that money's going to fuel it. Okay? That's first and foremost. Second thing that's going to happen is they're not all of that's going to go towards just personal cash flow to those people. It's going to help them buy them land. It's going to help buy stuff. So some of that cash flow is going to go back into the reserve, which is going to strengthen the investment more. Okay? Mm-hmm. So Article 140 is very simply put a settlement process. They're going to get paid out over time. They'll probably be able to get loans against it, and it won't burn through their cash flow. Okay?
Okay.
How will you know if it's a dirty float? You'll know if it's a dirty float or not because on Forex, upon a reinstatement, it'll sharply rise. What do you guys call that in the digital currency space when it forks way high like that? A stock, it's called a fork. I know that. A fork and a split. On this, that thing's going to look like this, and it's going to go this. It's going to run. And you're going to see it right away. Because Forex happens in real time when the markets are good. Okay? And then we're out of it, and we're on to the next investment, which is dong, so to speak. Or dong, then Venezuela, then Colombia. Okay? So get that now, okay? Colombia, Venezuela. What was the other country that was really hot and heavy on? Someone else told me a country I was really hot and heavy on. It might be Indonesia. I'm really looking at Indonesia to start talking about that too pretty soon.
Thailand?
No, Indonesia is a little bit further ahead. Indonesia and India are hot right now, especially India, because of their labor. Mm. But see guys, the reason why the dong is so much better, and I'm going to get to the dong story too. The reason why the dong is so far ahead of Indonesia and India, because it's not slave labor. Hey y'all, Malik here from San Antonio. How much should we exchange at the first? What's the recommended amount before it pulls back? The recommended amount is you take your bills to pay them off to give you enough time to where if you don't want to go to work or to pay off whatever you need to pay off, whatever's hanging over your head, that it gets you well.
She's getting into something.
She's just wheezing. Okay. Article 140 is on the parliamentary notes list. It says part of the most important articles to be amended in the Constitution pertain to the political system, provincial elections, provincial laws, Article 140, and disputed areas. We know that's on the list. The next thing I'm looking for, and shout out to Lisa for doing all that, if the next thing I'm looking on the list is, I want to see if the hydrocarbon law is on that list also. If the hydrocarbon law is on that for the budget and they're going to start talking about it, and Lisa, I'm leaning on you to tell me this because you described that. If that's in the budget, I'm not telling you to quit your job, but I'm telling you they're about to reinstate. Because they can't pay the hydrocarbon law and they can't pay the Article 140 and sustain their business. They can't. They don't have enough cash. They just don't have enough cash. Okay? So we know now for sure that's on the list. Now, we also know that because it could be reinstated if you were Iraq and being in business. You've got to think about it like this. They need as many 3-0 notes as possible. $1 probably won't do it for them. After that, I told you now Article 140. We know it's on parliamentary's list. We know that the Kurds are in town right now. They met with the old PM. He's out. We know that for sure. We also know that they're negotiating about 12.3 to 12.7%. We know that they gave up 5% to cover Article 140. That's what they did. It's negotiation, guys. It's like anything else. I have to give you something to get something back. Okay? Let's go on to Dong News and we'll close this out. Okay. For the first time in 9 months of the year, U.S. imports from Vietnam jumped to 34.8%. Now, you got to understand, it's never been that high, okay? Our trade with Vietnam has never been 34.8%. China shrank to 13.4%. So understand China and trade. We've gone over that. So if you're a newbie, you got to go to some old videos and look at that. If you shrink someone's trade, you shrink their bank, right? So we're starving China. Now, what we're doing is we're giving that money, offsetting it because of all those companies that went over to Vietnam. We're giving that money to them, okay? That increase in exports to the U.S. has made Vietnam one of the largest beneficiaries of the trade war. Vietnam has the fastest growing export categories to the U.S. are computers, telephones, equipment, and machinery. Why is that important, Ms. BB? You're a techno nerd. Why is that important?
Why is it important?
Uh-huh.
Because we use them.
Well, that too. It's in high demand, but why is it truly important? Skilled labor. Skilled labor pays a higher wage than slave labor. To have a valuable currency, all the countries that are industrialized work with a skilled labor force. They don't work with a slave labor force.
Didn't they increase their minimum wage as well?
Miss BB, stop running the show.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. Well, you went down that rabbit hole.
Well,
so
of
my
course,
bad.
this is a show.
I'm sorry.
Miss BB's got it on point. She's absolutely right.
There it is.
Okay? Read it, Miss BB.
Vietnam to increase minimum wage January 2020. Vietnam will increase their minimum wage at approximately 5.7% from January 1st, 2020. The increase varies from US $6 to US $10, depending on living expenses in a particular region.
Which we know got raised because the average wage got higher because they raised themselves to international standards, right? We know that the Vietnam-Cambodian Trade Investment Promotion Forum held. The event took place for the first time in Cambodia. The economy has enjoyed steady growth, reaching 7% annually. About 50 Vietnamese firms and research units explored business opportunities and discussed with representatives from Cambodia Ministry of Commerce and the Council of Development in Cambodia, CDC, about regulations on licensing foreign products in specific areas. Vietnamese ambassadors to Cambodia suggested several Vietnamese models, including linkage between state, farm scientists, and businesses to facilitate effective and sustainable farm products production and consumption. Two-way trade between Vietnam and Cambodia hit about $4.7 billion last year, that's USD, up to 23.8%. Now, Ms. BB, you know me, I like to ask questions. Why is that important?
I don't know.
Because they didn't put all their eggs in one basket.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm saying? They're trading with other partners.
Yes.
They're balancing out their trade, and they're working within their system with all the other Asian countries so that they get a good trade balance going on, right?
Right.
So they're making money within their nations and helping their fellow nations make money to strengthen their, what do I want to call it, their propinquity to each other, right? Where they are to each other, okay? Now, the two nations signed a number of agreements. Cambodia economic connectivity by 2030 by Action Plan Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam connectively on a double taxation avoidance. By them avoiding tax, you're going to see me talk a lot about tax avoidance amongst trade partners because you don't want tariffs involved. The problem with our trade system is we tariff people and then they tariff us. It makes the goods rise higher and the true value of the goods not be the same, and that way the governments get paid and we don't. Does that make sense? We pay the freight, but the money goes to the governments, right? Now, let's go back. There was the company, okay, there's a big development in Saigon that will have 10,000 products in several categories, including household, furniture, tools, and outdoors. Now, you also have to have a labor force, right? You got to have people. So what does that mean? They're not abandoning the labor people, right? They're going to give them skilled jobs such as furniture, household equipment, tools, and outdoors, and they're building this huge thing for the uneducated workforce, right? But they're not the main thing. Their main exports are computers and things of nature that need programming, that need technology, that need skilled engineers. That's important. That means they have an educated economy and an educated population, right? Now, the company entered Vietnam as a rising urban income is increasing demand for furniture and household items. Before Vietnam, Ace Hardware entered several other Asian markets like Indonesia, the Philippines, and South Korea. According to the Ministry of Industry and Trade, an average of 1 to 3 retail stores are needed per 1,000 people. However, only 7,012 stores are considered modern retail stores in Vietnam. So what does that tell you? They're going to modernize Vietnam. They're going to make Vietnam the Hong Kong, right? Not China, the Hong Kong of its area. Okay, here's some trade deals. U.S. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien said it was still possible to reach a preliminary trade deal with China by the end of the year, but warned that Washington would not turn a blind eye to what was happening in Hong Kong. The comments inflamed growing fears that China's crackdown on anti-government protests in Hong Kong could further complicate efforts in Beijing and Washington and end a trade war that disrupted global markets and dampened expectations for global economic growth. But is it truly dampening growth, or is it just dispersing the growth to different countries, right? I think that's the thing that people don't talk about. Yeah, it's hurting China. It ain't hurting us. Our economy is flourishing. We're not doing bad at all. It's China that's in the shitter. You see what I'm saying? Now, we hope to conclude a one-phase agreement by the end of the year. Now, the one-phase agreement has to be about licensing and on intellectual properties and stuff of that nature, right? U.S. President Donald Trump said on Friday he had a meeting with a phone conversation with President Jing Jung. Crushing Hong Kong protesters would have a huge negative impact on efforts to reach an agreement to end a 16-month-old trade war. Now, that's very important because we stand with Hong Kong. Remember, Hong Kong just got annexed into China like 10, 15 years ago, I believe. So they hurt Hong Kong, we hurt China. You see what I'm saying? And that's fair. People frowned upon Iraq when they hurt their protesters.
Right.
The same thing's happening in Hong Kong, but you don't see it on the news as much. Okay? Trade experts and sources close to the White House said last week that the deal could be delayed for next year. Remember, I told you next year. I know it's going to be next year, and the reason is it's easily fiscally to change things, either the first or second quarter, and it'll also allow themselves to reinstate the yuan, which will make the Vietnamese currency. That's why I say second quarter next year. It will make it rise in value. See what I'm saying? It gives everybody time to catch up.
Do you feel like that the dong is at all tied to the dinar reinstatement?
As much as I am Jewish. Not at all.
Okay.
I don't mean to be, I'm not trying to be foolish. Daisy, get away from my camera.
Daisy needs to go. She's really on one tonight.
Now, last but not least, to show you guys how they're trying to how they're trying to modernize.
Go ahead.
They're building a World Trade Center in Bingdong, New York City, a complex or facilities to promote international trade. We built namesake Southern Province. A launching ceremony to develop a complex was held November 23rd in Ben Duong People's Committee. To be built in BCOMEX, IDC, WTC, BDNC is one of the key projects in the phase of development as a smart city. It's a 70,000 multi-purpose complex offering a wide range of services and facilities, an ideal destination for commercial, cultural, and community activities both during and day and night. The central square was surrounded by functional facilities with pleasing green oasis, including parks, lawns, water-covered areas, and accessible through covered pathways. The multi-use sports center can accommodate 4,000 spectators and will be suitable for sports as well as entertainment and concerts and cultural events. What are they doing? You guys know I'm going to challenge you guys a lot on that. They're setting up tourism to be a second form of income to that country.
For Vietnam.
Right. That's why they're modernizing the country. Mm-hmm. When you get people to find your country to be attractive and you want to visit it, guess what you do? You go there and you do what? You spend money.
Right.
And even if the currency was worth 40 cents, could you imagine going there and for every dollar you spent, you could basically get double your money's worth? It's still advantageous for you to invest.
I think Ken is asking about the dong. He's saying what absolutely needs to be done before the revalue. The revalue.
It is a revalue. Yeah, it is a revalue because it already has a value and it's on the international stage. It's a revalue. Yes, it has the China trade. China has to raise the value of their currency to release Vietnam to raise theirs to make it competitive in the trade market because they're not China's bitch anymore.
Gotcha.
That has to happen.
I hope that answers your question, Biker Ken.
China and Vietnam are kind of like you and like your closely related cousin that's in your business. You're only as strong as your weakest link. Mm-hmm. With these companies that are fleeing over there for the labor, it doesn't hurt them to pay them a fair wage, but it hurts you if you don't treat them to an international standard because countries won't do business with you if they think you're using them as slave labor. That's why people don't like China because they know that a lot of the workforce that comes out of there is slave labor.